All right, welcome to the Ohio State of Mind with your host, Josh Keatley. Today I am riding solo. I had a little bit of a mishap this weekend, so I'm not in the best shape, but that's all right. We're going to keep on cruising. The NFL draft happened last week, and doing our show late this week is actually giving us some extra time to figure out where all the former Ohio State Buckeyes are landing on their NFL rosters. So today we're just going to do a brief recap of where all the Buckeyes went in the draft and then where the undrafted guys went and signed with. So let's just roll down this list. So obviously the first Ohio State Buckeye that went off the board was Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was drafted in the first round by the New York Jets for very good reason. Obviously, we all thought he was the best wide receiver in the draft class. He is not the number one wide receiver taking in the overall draft. That was actually Drake London, the number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. Garrett Wilson went 2 spots later to the New York Jets. But honestly, I think it's a good fit. I think he's going to go and enter that wide receiver room and be the number one guy. He'll be able to connect with Zach Wilson, who I think is a very good quarterback. So I think overall it's a good fit. It's a franchise that's on the rebuild, but I think that they're a little further along in the rebuild process than the Atlanta Falcons. There's a little bit more help for him. So hopefully that makes the transition a little bit easier. Now, the very next pick was actually Chris Olave to the New Orleans Saints at number 11. I was a bit shocked by this. I didn't think Chris Olave was what the Saints were going to be looking for when you're looking for a complimentary piece to Michael Thomas, who's been dealing with a lot of injuries. But I think this worked out to be a great pick. Chris Olave has got a very high floor. He's got a very high ceiling as well, but the most alluring part about him as a prospect is a high floor. I strongly recommend, if you're looking for a deeper scouting report on all these guys, to go listen to my podcast, The Ohio State of Mind, last week with Nate Adkins from Bears Wire, USA Today's Bears Wire, because we kind of go through pretty in-depth scouting reports on each Ohio State prospect and where we view them going. You can also view my work at Buckeyes Wire. That's USA Today's Sports Buckeyes Wire, where I also break down, my expectations for a lot of these guys. Not all of them, but a lot of them. The very next player off the board, it actually took 2 rounds later. There was no Buckeyes taken in the second round, which was kind of shocking to me. But in the third round, Nicholas Petit-Frere was drafted by the Tennessee Titans with the 69th pick overall. Nice. I thought Petit-Frere has a first-round ability. I think if you take away that tape against Aiden Hutchinson in Michigan, you're looking at a guy who has first-round tape all the way. You're hard-pressed to find him getting beat. If you watched him against Michigan State, he was pretty much flawless in that game. And Michigan State's a team that runs a lot of stunts. They have a very complex defense. They like to get their offensive tackles on the island and stunt, slant, and do all that good stuff, and he handled it like a champ. Like I said, if it wasn't for the Aiden Hutchinson tape, I think we'd be looking at Nicholas Petit-Frere possibly entering in the first round. But that's not what happened, and I think the Titans are getting a steal. He's going to have an opportunity to start pretty much immediately. There's not a lot of help on that offensive line on the right side, so he's going to have to move over to the right side, which I don't think is going to be a big issue for him. That's something that he should be able to handle, and he'll have an opportunity to start right away. I think the Titans got an absolute steal with that. Now, moving on, another pick in the third round is Jeremy Ruckert. Jeremy Ruckert was drafted by the New York Jets, so he's going to be joining Garrett Wilson, and I think that this adds to the fact that it's such a good fit for Garrett Wilson. The Jets are really trying to figure out if Zach Wilson's the guy, so they're adding a lot of offensive weapons. Jeremy Ruckert's a very, 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 very good blocking tight end. Some would say elite blocking tight end. I thought that there was a chance he'd slide into the first round based purely off of his blocking ability. I truly believe if he wasn't dealing with injuries throughout the pre-draft process and through his pre-draft workouts, we might be talking about him in the first round. So I think the New York Jets are getting an absolute steal. Again, Ruckert was – I think this is a guy that was going to test out the gym. He was going to run a very impressive 40. He was going to bench a lot. And he was really going to put himself in the first round conversation, put him in the conversation of hey, somebody that at the very worst is going to be an elite blocker at the next level with high upside as a potential dynamo receiving tight end, very much in the Travis Kelce mode, or George Kittle, probably more along the lines of George Kittle, because George Kittle's a very aggressive, powerful guy. But this is a good fit. The Jets got an absolute steal in the third round. Again, I fully expect Ruckert to play immediately. He grew up in New York, which I think he grew up. I think his house was like an hour away from MetLife Stadium. So this is probably a dream come true for him. Very good fit as well. So I'm pretty excited for that. That's probably one of my low key steals of the draft. The very next pick, the Buck off the board, we have to wait to the 5th round when Tyreke Smith was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. This one was another interesting one. I gave Tyreke Smith a 3rd-round grade. I think he's very explosive off of the corner. I think he's a good pass rusher. I think he showed that despite not showing the production you'd expect from someone going the 3rd, 2nd round. But we've seen guys with less production at the college level go higher. Take, for instance, the Cleveland Browns drafting Alex Wright from UAB, an even smaller school. But Tyreke Smith was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. The thing about Tyreke is he was going to struggle with is that he lacks the ideal size of a defensive end to anchor. But with the Seahawks, that's not going to be an issue at all because the Seahawks actually run a 3-4. So he's going to be playing outside in a 2-point stance. He's probably going to have to learn how to cover. You can't just, blitz off the end every single time, although that's probably going to be the majority of what he does. He does that very well. I can see him contributing as a rookie, but he's probably not going to be in line for a majority of the snaps. I would expect him, though. I do think he has the potential to break into that lineup and be a potential cornerstone of that defense later down the road. I just don't see it happening as a rookie. I see him getting, some spare snaps here and there. Very much in the same vein as when the Cleveland Browns always draft their linebackers, Mac Wilson, Sion Takitaki. I keep using the Cleveland Browns references because I also write for Browns Wire, also part of the USA Today Sports Network. So if you want to check out any Browns news, go over and check me out there. But yeah, Tyreke Smith, I think it was another steal in the 5th round. I think Pete Carroll find a place for him. The Seahawks are a very good team. I know they just got rid of Russell Wilson, but they seem to always pull things together. And I think Tyreke Smith is going to be. He can probably raise his play to be a potential steal there. And then another steal that I love. Again, I'm trying not to be biased, but some of these guys just fell to just ungodly rounds. I don't understand it. But Thayer Munford, he was drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders in the 7th round. I don't know how he falls to the 7th round. I don't know how someone who's all conference in the Big Ten at offensive tackle and guard and has over 40 career starts at a school like Ohio State falls to the 7th round. But there he is. He's landing in Las Vegas. I think he's going to have the potential to play. He's going to have, the reason that we're seeing him fall to the 7th round, and this is a guy that was mocked in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd rounds last year or even the year before, is because he did struggle at guard. He was a much better offensive tackle, a much better left tackle than he was at guard. So you did get to see some of his weaknesses. This is a guy who some say he was bumped and bruised throughout the majority of the season, and it's hard to make that transition. It's not as easy as everybody says. It's not as easy as what you read in the magazines of, we'll just slide him down. That's not really how it works, right? You go from playing out in an island at offensive tackle to playing in a phone booth, tight in space at guard, and then you gotta deal with that. And he didn't make that transition as smoothly as people projected. With that said, the potential's there. There's games where he was pretty much lights out. There's games where I would say his tape was borderline elite. I was on record last week saying that I gave him a 1st-round grade. Now, remember, I grade like I make love very generously. So take that with a grain of salt. But I do think that he showed 1st-round tape at some point. And the fact that he was mocked so early in so many drafts before last year's season even started kind of goes towards that. But either way, he ends up in the 7th round with the Raiders. I think this is a guy, he's got great size. He's got the size to play tackle. He's got the size to play guard. He's got great length. He knows how to utilize that length. I think that he can start for the Raiders. Is he going to start as a rookie? I don't think so. I think he's going to need to learn that position a little bit more. Is he going to start next year? Again, I would foresee him maybe having more of a swingman role next year and then probably breaking into the starting lineup as a third year pro, or if he doesn't, that he's going to be, at the very least, I think he's going to be a very comfortable high level swingman offensive lineman, kind of in this way you see with Chris Hubbard with the Cleveland Browns, or when Chris Hubbard was with the Houston Texans, a guy that's in there when guys are hurt and you don't really want them in there, but they're not a liability. I think that's kind of Thayer Munford's floor, which is, I think that's kind of what you want in a 7th rounder. If you can get that in a 7th rounder, you're very lucky. So again, I think the Raiders got an absolute steal there. So let's keep scrolling. The first undrafted free agent I want to talk about is Haskell Garrett. Haskell Garrett got picked up immediately by the Tennessee Titans, and he's going to have a chance to land a roster spot. He didn't get in camp invite. He got the full blown contract deal. I think this is a guy that a lot of teams we're thinking about drafting, I think this is a guy who can start in the NFL. Can he start at a high level? I don't think so. Haskell Garrett is not exactly the anchor on the interior that you look for in an every down starter, but he's a great penetrator. He's got a great first step. He's a guy that can come in, relieve some snaps from your heavy hitters. And I think that the Titans going with joining Mike Vrabel there and Petit Frere there, that's going to be a good place for him to go. I think he can land a roster spot. The Titans are very weak on that interior defensive line. So is he going to play? Is he going to start? I don't know. Those he's going to have to grind it and get to that level. But he should definitely land a roster spot. I'm not worried about him getting cut at all. Even if he does get cut, this is a guy that is known for his work ethic. We all know he got shot in the face and didn't miss any football. So that's the kind of work ethic he brings. So I'm not worried about him having a job in the NFL. This is a guy that's going to be at least on the bottom of a roster for 5, 6, 7 years. I'm trying to think of a good example, maybe a Michael Bennett type. Michael Bennett kind of stuck around. A lesser. Jonathan Hankins was a beast in his prime and has kind of bounced around rosters. So maybe later in the career, Jonathan Hankins type. Even then, that'd be pretty great for Garrett because Hankins is still starting he was actually starting for the Raiders last year. So, but Haskell Garrett's it's a good player, solid player. I think I gave him a 4th, 5th round grade, and he fell all the way and wasn't drafted. And sometimes when you go undrafted, it's a little bit of a blessing. I know Austin Fennegar. If you listen to Around the Gridiron with Nate Atkins and Austin Fennegar, that's the show that Nathan was on here talking about last week, and he is an agent. He'll tell you that a lot of times if you're looking at the 6th or 7th round, you don't want to get drafted. You want to go undrafted so you have an opportunity to pick your team, to pick your scenario, to pick your plays, pick your coaching staff. So this might be a blessing. There's probably a reason Haskell Garrett picked the Tennessee Titans other than just that they paid him the most. So I'll be looking forward to him. That's the guy I have my eye on. Moving on, Master Teague, the running back. I gave him a 6th round grade. This is a guy that Nate and I kind of talked about. He checks all the boxes that you look for physically for a starting running back in the NFL, but he just didn't produce at Ohio State. He didn't produce at the college level. It's a little bit different when we talk about lack of production with Tyreke Smith at defensive end. That's a little different because Tyreke Smith wasn't really given the defensive scheme didn't really fit what he was trying to do. Master T got opportunities. He got outplayed by Travion Henderson, Trey Sermon at times. Last year, J.K. Dobbins. He's pretty much been outperformed every year of his career at Ohio State. But he's still he looks like a rock star with the shirt off. Ran in the 4.4s. So he has the look of a starting NFL running back. And he got signed by the Chicago Bears as an undrafted free agent. I think that was a good move by them. I think that he's got a chance to make the roster. Having a connection with your quarterback isn't as important for a running back as it is a wide receiver, but that's definitely going to play a role when you're at the bottom of a roster and you're trying to figure out how to get your niche. If you know the quarterback and you have a connection with your quarterback and you have decent hands out of your backfield like Master Teague does, and you're a good, decent blocker like Master Teague, because Master Teague is a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none type, then that's something that you can use to your advantage and maybe make a roster. I don't think Master Teague is I don't think he's in. He's going to get a shot. Mike Weber, that's a guy that was in the NFL for a bit. Recently was in the USFL, didn't work out so well due to injuries. But Master Teague is very much in the same vein, maybe a little bit worse. But, Weber got himself a Super Bowl ring, bounced around a little bit with the Cowboys and the Chiefs. And I expect the same from Master Teague at the worst. Moving on down the list. Now we're talking about the mini camp invites. The difference here is that rookie mini camps, you can have the regular season roster in the NFL has to be limited to 53. The cut down is to 53. I have a lot of confidence both Haskell Garrett and Master Teague are going to make 53-man rosters for a respective team. Whether it's with the Titans and Bears, the teams that originally signed them, I'm not sure. But I feel like they're going to be on an active roster in the NFL. Mini camp invites, NFL teams can invite up to 90 players to their mini camp to the mini camp before they have to do the cut downs. A lot of times you'll see rookie mini camps, and this is kind of what we're diving into. Chris Booker was signed by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Chris Booker's probably not a name that a lot of guys are going to remember because he actually started out, he was playing on the club football team at Ohio State before earning a walk-on position and then eventually a scholarship the last 2 years. Yes, he played special teams primarily the last 2 years and actually under scholarship on the Ohio State varsity football team. So it's a really cool underdog story, we're all rooting for him. Is he going to make the roster? I don't think so. You can't just be a special teams ace. It's really hard to be a special teams ace and make an NFL roster. A name that comes to mind is Nate Ebner. He was a special teams ace that was actually drafted by the New England Patriots. Was a former lacrosse player at Ohio State and played a couple years of football at Ohio State as a special teams guy, and he made a hell of a living in the NFL being just strictly a special teams guy. But that's pretty rare. The Patriots are a pretty rare franchise that do that. I don't know if Chris Booker has the receiving talent to hang on to a roster spot, but we'll certainly see. I'm definitely rooting for him. If you're gonna do it, I guess the Cardinals probably make the best bet. I'm unsure, to be honest with you, when it comes to special teams and what that all entails as far as how your keep is on an NFL roster just doing special teams. I don't know. I have no idea. The Patriots are really the only ones I know that really reserve spots for special team stars. Oh, the next player is Antoine Jackson, defensive tackle. He got a mini camp invite from the New York Giants. Again, Antoine Jackson was a guy who wasn't super productive at college. You saw him get lapped for snaps from freshmen like Tyreke Williams. He didn't get a whole lot of time in the interior. Wasn't a lot of faith given to him. This was a former 4-star guy, JUCO guy. I think that he has potential. He has the size. Is he going to do anything in the NFL? I mean, the odds are definitely stacked against him. So we'll see what happens there. The next guy is Demario Mccall. He got a mini-camp invite from the Chicago Bears. Mccall, if you remember, he was a former 4-star recruit wide receiver, and he made the transition to cornerback the last 2 years at Ohio State. He actually played pretty decently when you look at spring games and practices when they were just running man-to-man and very simple stuff. It was when you started getting into complex coverages and actually learning how to play defensive back that he struggled. He's always been a fast, quick player. Very quick twitch athlete. I've always been a big fan of Demario Mccall. I think he's got an immense amount of talent. I don't know if he's going to make it in the NFL, right? It's going to take it. Wise man once told me that you don't go to the NFL to learn how to be a football player. You got to go to the NFL and be a good football player. And Demario Mccall is right now, he's just an athlete. I'm assuming the Chicago Bears are going to try to play him at cornerback. I don't know. Maybe he might have a better luck sticking the roster as wide receiver. Maybe the Chicago Bears feel that they can save a roster spot by having him. I don't know. I don't know if he plays either of those positions well enough to earn his keep, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm definitely rooting for him. I would assume that having played with Master Teague and Justin Fields helps, but it's probably not going to help the same way Master Teague's relationships helps with Justin Fields, because they were on the field a lot more with each other. So we'll definitely see with that. But that was it. That was all the players that were either signed or drafted or invited to mini camps. In other Buckeye news, Johnny Dixon, the former wide receiver for Ohio State, the former Dallas Cowboy. I think he had some stints with the Giants. I know he was with the Cowboys this past year for training camp. He's with the New Orleans Breakers of the USFL, which they're called the New Orleans Breakers, but all USFL teams play in Birmingham, Alabama. But he is with the Breakers. He was the offensive player of the week in the USFL last week. He currently leads the USFL in receiving yards and I believe receiving touchdowns. Absolute beast, absolute phenom. Johnny Dixon was a former 4-5-star recruit, Army All-American guy who immediately came to Ohio State and got hurt. He dealt with injuries throughout his career, but he was a part of that legendary receiving corps with Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown. Benjamin Victor. He was a part of that group, and he got the ball pretty consistently when he was healthy. He's a great athlete. He's a great human being. So we definitely wish him the luck. Hopefully he can keep those good times going. That's a guy that I know I will have locked into my USFL Daily Fantasy. Marcus Ball was another guy who already has a couple of receptions, knocked up some stats in the USFL as well for the Michigan Panthers, catching passes from Shea Patterson. So it's been a pretty interesting league to watch. I know I was devastated when the New Jersey Generals cut Mike Weber, but dims the brakes. I thought he was going to be the next Herschel Walker, but that happens. I guess he got hurt, and they don't have roster spots and money to waste in the USFL, which I understand that 100%. But keep your eyes out for Johnny Dixon. Very, very cool. Also, in other Ohio State news is they scheduled games in 2034 or 2035 against Boston College. So I'm sure no one really cares about that because that's 10 years from now. but still pretty interesting. They're scheduling games with ACC opponents. Maybe by then Boston College will be good. I don't know. Jeff Hafley maybe still be there. So I guess we'll see about that. But this was the Ohio State of Mind. Make sure you give us a like, listen, follow, subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on all your sites. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know who you want as a guest. Reach out to me on Twitter at JoshKeatley16. Check out my work at Buckeyes Wire, USA Today's Buckeyes Wire, or USA Today's Browns Wire if you're looking for some pro news. And this is it. We're out.